Hello and welcome to this week's Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, and with Shane Brophy there. It looks like you were drowning for a second. You pulled yourself back up out of it, Shane. How are things with you, first off?
Good now, good. See, the water breaks are officially gone, so I'm not going to miss having to go to your watch or go to your app and try and stop the clock, and then you suddenly 2 minutes later when the match, I forgot to stop the clock, and you don't know when you're writing a match report whether a score was the 21st minute or the 23rd. So thank God that's gone.
That's really the first part of the problem.
From a media, people don't understand the water break was an annoyance for the media because you didn't know who was given the time, who was working off the proper time, or who just carried on into injury time. So I don't think anybody's glad to see the back of it. There probably are some coaches out there that the ones that love hearing they love getting that message across in terms of that they have a bit of control there after 18, 19 minutes where they can change things. But I think overall, I'm glad to see the back of them.
It's going to change the flow of games too, isn't it? Because, I mean, everybody knows that the first half can be unrecognizable to the second half in a game because managers have had time to sit down and say, look, lads, this is how we'll set up, we'll change things around. And also, even I see a report coming out recently about the length of time that's used for the water breaks. Let me just double check it here, that it was 2 minutes and 18 seconds in football and 2 minutes and 14 seconds in hurling on average. So, it was the piss was being pulled out of it, really.
No, like there were coaching sessions, essentially, like tactic shops, and it's in some ways like I suppose if there was ever a game maybe that was going against the team, they were handy maybe just to reset and help them get back into a game. And I think we probably got more contests by that, was like games didn't get away from teams in first halves or second halves, but it'll be just the ingenuity of what's coming up. I particularly in hurling, I just thought of it the other day. I said, when are we ever going to get to a stage, particularly, I'd say definitely in hurling, where you wear helmets, where maybe the goalie is mic'd up with maybe somebody on the sideline, where like a lot with the quarterback in NFL, will the goalie have an earpiece, or maybe an outfield player would have an earpiece, where maybe your centre back, where if a certain message had to get in, it was like we all know that the Mayor Forna is gone, but I think that I think that's short-sighted. I think that's going to come back because as all the managers say, it was grand for the last 2 years where you had no crowds. It's easy to get a message on from the sideline when there's 80,000 in Croke Park. I think there's a way of doing it. Maybe you don't let them onto the field, but maybe you allow them to go around the perimeter of a pitch. If you have to get a message to a guy on the far side, that you're allowed to go the full way around, but you can't get on. Because I know we do, particularly in football, where it was being abused, where you'd have the guys coming on marking space and confusing the goalie if a guy is trying to kick out a ball from the far end, so.
Yeah, well, look, there had been rumour a while back of a certain goalkeeper in a Leinster Championship county that they had an earpiece on. I don't know if that was ever confirmed or not, but I think, like, some coaches who think that do you remember Jose Mourinho saying a few years ago about Luke Shaw playing well? He'd been criticised him for years that it was his body out there in my brain. I'd say there's some GA managers in both codes out there that they're that good and that their intellect is that evolved in GA that they would be like that. But you know what? We're kind of seeing it already a little bit with goalkeepers. You definitely see a selector now and again. Maybe it might be stopped in Championship, but they're standing behind the goalkeeper, a goalkeeping coach, just telling him where to puck it out, throwing him a slitter and telling him go right wing forward, or they'll put a name on it, or they'll say a certain puck out routine that they have. But well, the Mayor Ishkas are going to be back. They're being restored this weekend as well, so we are going to see the runners back out onto the field. And as a player, to just be able to get the water in.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great just to be back at inter-county games. I know I'll be in Dungarvan. Look, there won't be a huge crowd down there on Sunday, but look, anything is better than nothing. And you get no sympathy from our viewers anyway. So.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Tipperary jersey. And people out there, please get your comments in and let us know what you think. Here it is being modelled by John McGrath. There it is with the new sponsor, Fiserv. What do you make of the jersey?
I think it's nice. I'm a big fan of the traditional. I hate some of the. In fairness, I give O'Neill's credit. They they keep it very, very simple. I think that's what the GA fans like, and I think it has a throwback to the 2001 jersey. I think that was where you have the collar there, and like I think the same shade of blue there too, very dark. And I know people lament the ending of the Finches jersey, but I suppose Fiserv has, what is it, four of the same letters in Finches and Fiserv. So if we get an All Ireland in the next 3 years with Fiserv, will be our next two. We'll be happy. So it just looks nice, and the goalkeeping jersey looks nice too. So I'd say it'll be a big seller, like it always is when a new jersey comes out. And I suppose the fact that a lot of our supporters haven't been at games for 2 years, I'd say some will be anxious to get the new jersey when get out there for the next couple of weeks when the matches start up. Like so, it's always it's always one of the things you look out for every 2 or 3 years when a new one comes out.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring it up again here. I think one of the parts I like the most is the blue and gold lines that are on the collar. I think that looks quite well. I think any new sponsor takes time just to get used to visually, but overall not bad.
I suppose from, again, another first world media problem, it'd be interesting to see whether the tip numbers on the back go like Kerry. You know, the way the Kerry last jersey, they really increased the font size, and you could really see the Kerry numbers, where the last couple of tip jerseys, like it can be hard to distinguish them. I thought maybe if they were brave enough, they'd go back to the 60s or 70s jerseys with the white square and they put the numbers in the middle. I think that would be a real throwback, but no, they're gone with the full hoop around it. I remember, was it the Skoda jersey or the one before that, when the hoop was gone and it was nearly just a pure blue background? Some people nearly lost their head over that, like, so sacrilege.
Well, you need that modern, but also the hint towards the classic.
Yeah.
People don't ever want to go too far away from the classic blue and gold. So we've talked about that, but let's talk about something that happened in Thurles over the weekend, the All-Ireland Club semi-finals. We'll just talk about them for a second, because I suppose everyone is interested in the club championship. I was in Thurles watching Ballyhale getting out of jail with that last second 21-yard free from TJ Reid, blasted it to the net. He dipped his hurley into a bucket of cold water the night before to get that extra bit of power. What did you make of that? I mean, Ballygunner got the job done against Schlockneil and they're fairly professional about it. But what were your thoughts on the two semi-finals?
I thought there were two good games. I think the first game, I suppose, I actually saw more of the first game than the second game. I just thought, Jesus, I thought Schlockneil were as good as Ballygunner for a lot of it. Like, if we're talking about set plays, like, it's as if Ballygunner had a game plan within the first minute of each half. Lads, if we get a goal chance, we go for it. And the two goals were the killers, like, because I think in the balance of play after that, there was very, very little. You did think, okay, Ballygunner had a bit more savvy about them, but look, you say to Schlockneil, like, they're fantastic entertainment, are they? They're really, really put it up to teams. But look, I suppose we're getting the final we all wanted to see, and I suppose for long stages we weren't going to get it. But St. Thomas's, I thought, were a nice bit better than Ballyhale on the day. But look, unless a lot like Kilkenny, unless you have Ballyhale and the bus or their cars back home to South Kilkenny, you haven't got them beaten. And look, once I saw TJ standing over that for you, so it's like, I think you got even. You would have given even money on him scoring it, because he just has that ability about him. And look, it was sickening for St. Thomas's, because they left it behind them. Like, they should have won it. They were a better team on the day. But look, I suppose for the neutrals, I suppose we're getting the final I think most people wanted to see. And like, on one hand, you say Ballygunner or Ballyhale have been there and done it, but they've got out of jail twice this year. They're ready to be buried. But this is Ballygunner's first final, and they don't have the experience of Crow Park that Ballyhale do. So I can see it going either way. Like, I just think it's utterly fast. I couldn't pick that one at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's as interesting as any game we're going to see in GA this year. And yeah, like when TJ put that ball down, we've all seen this movie before. We've seen him buried into the back of the net in stadiums all across the country. But I do think Ballygunner look like they have that mean streak in them this year, where they're willing to do whatever it takes. You saw a couple of rugby tackles towards the end of the game to make sure lads couldn't get in. We saw it against Kilmallock. Obviously, we saw what went on against Lockmore also. A question I'd have for you. Do you look at the level of quality going on in club at the moment and think a Tipperary team can get there very soon and end this long famine since 1987?
I think we can. Like, because look at Borsley got there 2 years ago, and I think they had their chances. Like a small bit of it, maybe some of the younger forwards, and maybe even Conor Kenny probably missed a few chances that day. You'd say he should have gotten. I definitely think the standard of club championship at Tip has improved over the last few years. Like you've had 5 different winners in a row, and like you'll have a few more clubs still knocking on the door. So it's just so difficult. I wouldn't. I still think like Kildangan, Thurles, Lockmore, Borsley. I think we have 5 or 6 clubs. Whoever can win a county championship next year would give it a real good go. I think it will become increasingly difficult the longer Ballygunner stay coming out of Waterford, because they just look like they're just rolling out player after player from underage. Like they're going to get stronger over the next few years. Kilmallock, Na Piarsaigh, and Kilmallock. I see. Look at Shane O'Brien. He's going to become eligible for them next year. He's probably maybe that savvy forward. Maybe that their senior team this year's group probably just didn't have. Patrick Swell will be there, Na Piarsaigh will be there. So I don't know if Clare will put anything out over the next few years. Cork, I think the Cork. I'm not sure. I just don't know if the Cork Championship physical enough. I don't think the Cork Championship prepares you well enough for a Munster Club Championship. So I would think. I think a lot of the Tipperary clubs have a chance from here on in. Like it's just going to be who will it be every year. But I just definitely think over the next 3 or 4 years you could get a couple more different winners. But I think down the line, maybe with the strength of Thurles Og and the vast majority of them guys going to Thurles Arsefields, that we could see another period of dominance coming from them in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and joining us now is Brian Fox of Aero Gannacarty Donahill. It's some word jumble to try and remember all that. Brian, how's things with you? Oh, I can't quite hear you there, Brian. Can you hear him, Shane?
I can't. He's on mute, is he?
Do you have yourself muted there, Brian? Oh, for whatever reason, can't quite hear you there. Would you jump off and jump back on, Brian, and maybe leave off the headphones if it's not working? Shane, just even to take up your point about the Tipperary clubs, can they get through and make that breakthrough? Interested in with Shane O'Neill taking over Borsley himself and John Fitzgerald. I mean, that's going to be an interesting one. You hear the rumours that Mikey Beavens might have some sort of an input as the year goes on. That's going to be important. I think Kildangan have a lot of work to do after the way their season ended in the semi-final last year. Thurles is a couple of their key players just going to be, you want Paddy Maher still at the height of his powers. If another year or two passes, that might be tough from that point of view. But obviously, the way he played last year, you'd be hoping he'd kick that on again. Lockmore, a lot of miles on the clock, and they keep it going. We'll try and bring Brian on here again. Brian, how are you doing?
Not too bad now, lads. Can you hear me this time?
We have you this time. I'm not sure how much of that you heard from the two of us just there. And obviously, we're going to talk a lot of football with you, but you're a hurling man too. What do you think of the Tipperary clubs in terms of like trying to breach that gap to 87 and someone win a club title again?
I'd say it's very difficult. I mean, you look at all the clubs who are out there, like obviously Ballyhale are winning 2 in a row and going for their third, and Ballygunner getting to their first All Ireland, but they had to win 8 Waterford titles, and they've been thereabouts in Munster for a long time. The Piarsaigh, every time they've won Limerick, they've won Munster nearly, I don't know, have anyone in Tipperary had that consistency in Tipperary winning consistently to go on then and say, right, we're targeting a Munster title and targeting All Ireland. Now, obviously, your own club, Shane, Borsley, got there, 2 years ago, but they didn't, I suppose they would have been surprised to win the county title that year, and then, they just got the momentum rolling, and that is a very hard thing to win. It's what the AIB say it is. It's the toughest,
I think a lot depends. Like you look at the 4 semi-finalists, like 3 of them have been consistently there. Effectively, Ballygunner, Ballyhale, it's St. Thomas's, even Shockney, the 4 of them. Like when you were consistently getting Ulster finals and provincial finals, you sort of park the county championship and you're moving on to higher targets. As you say, Brian, like we've had 5 different county champions the last few years, so it's hard to get that. Like if Borsley had won another one on the back of it, and they'd be able to build on what they got in 2020, getting to the All Ireland. Like it's just, I suppose that's the dog eat nature of Tip. Like you're so focused winning, it's so hard to win in Tip. Like you can't even look past that. Whereas maybe the likes of Ballyhale and Schlockmeal and St. Thomas sort of can have half a one eye on beyond their county championship, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but sure. Look at let's say Canolte won it and have struggled to get back to a county final since obviously. Like obviously Lockmore won it, and I think earlier on everyone had said SARS were the favourites. They were going so well around the year, but they didn't get over the line, and they haven't won it for the last 4 years now. Like and so that competition inside the county, that it's all you care about. You're putting all your energy into the county. It's very hard to refocus it and say, right, our long-term goal was really a Munster or an All-Ireland, and that's another 8, 10, 12 weeks, however long it goes on for after county championship. I mean, you've burned so much energy, and like look at Lockmore. I'm not saying they burnt out, but they spent so much energy to win the county titles.
Yeah, and you need a bit of luck in the draw. Like we Tipperary clubs. I don't know whether it's like you've had Lockmore have had to go to Waterford. Thurles, the amount of times they've had to go into Ennis or into Limerick, and Tip clubs really seem to get very, very few home games in this for some reason. I don't know. You need that bit of luck in terms of having a bit of home comfort in turn to sneak through. And like Lockmore didn't have it this year. If they had it again, another game in Thurles, maybe would have played to it. Like it's just, I think even small things like that in the early rounds in provincials, even getting a bye to a semi-final, it all adds up.
Yeah, it sure does. Hey, Brian, I might get you to. Can you slightly adjust yourself to be in the center of the screen? Perfect. There, that'd be great.
No,
yeah, the other way. Perfect. Brian, we were just talking about there that the water breaks are going to end before the league starts this weekend, and the Mayor Ishkas are back. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I didn't like the water breaks because obviously they never stayed to just a minute, and there was too much, I suppose, talking shop going on there. But like, I'd admire any county or club that were using them to good effect. Like, that's the way. Like, I think it was a great way of making games nearly tighter, because if a team got a run on you, you had an opportunity to just take a minute. It was a natural momentum killer. Like, the way you have a fella might go down or whatever, just to kill momentum. That was a natural momentum killer, and you could just readjust to say, right, this is what's happening. We need to do something different. And when you make that change, it often has an effect, and it kept games that bit more tighter. Was what I found anyway. The visual side of it, like I said, I would be a fan of just playing your 30-35 minutes straight through, like, and you have to readjust on the field, like, and react to everything that's going on.
And in the past 2 seasons, the official number of people allowed in your party heading to the game was limited somewhat. So in some situations, you didn't have, the extended panel there or everyone in the backroom team. So obviously that came up. But the official party now will go from 40 back up to 42. Was that something that caused many issues with you when you were trying to prepare and go to games, Brian?
I just remember in the build-up last year, I said 2020, actually, apologies. Let's say when it first came about, the last 2 rounds of the National League were played in September, and then obviously our matches, and to get certain players, like we had our 26, and if you wanted to have an extra player in case someone didn't make it through a fitness test, we had to call one of the backroom team. So I think one time our nutritionist couldn't come in, and like it's very tough because they all have their role on match day as well as in the training field and stuff like that and behind the scenes. So that means the slack has been picked up from someone else in the background team, So I am happy that they're after increasing the numbers back up to 42. I think it is important. Like and look, Tipperary aren't like Dublin or Mayo with 25, 30 fellas in the background team, like another panel in itself. But everyone's very important on match day, and everyone for most county squads would have that role, like that everyone's vital.
Yeah, it's only a couple of months now since you announced your retirement from Tipperary after being involved with 14 seasons. Like, I mean, how much of a wrench was it to say goodbye to it? I mean, what's it been like in the time since that you haven't been doing pre-season training and you're not prepared for the league?
Oh, I've been not doing much now, I'll be honest. I suppose I did find it difficult, I suppose, to step away a small bit. I loved it and just enjoyed every aspect, I suppose, of playing inter-county. Like, some lads hate the training. That never really bothered me much. Always kind of enjoyed the challenge of it. Trying to find things to do with myself is probably one of the biggest things, biggest change. Like you're in such a routine. Your Tuesday, your Thursdays, your weekends are laid out, and you organize yourself around those, and obviously your gym sessions and stuff. And now you're like, God, sure, if I don't want to go to the gym, I don't have to go to the gym. And if I don't want to try and get ready for club season for another while, that's okay. Like, definitely things, I suppose, have changed in that regard. But I like to keep busy. I like to obviously stay fit as well myself. So I'm not sitting idle, but definitely motivation, I suppose, to do things has definitely changed. Like, you know.
Yeah, and I just think like some players they take retirement differently in terms of like some mightn't go to maybe the first few games next year even as a fan because they find it too difficult. Like, will you be heading in the car to Dungarvan on Sunday? Like, will you happily just go to the sideline, or like will you leave it for a couple of rounds and then maybe jump in and be one of the lads again?
Yeah, I was fair considering going to the very first game, the McGrath Cup game, over in down in Rakila, and I was like, no, do you know what? I just need to stay away from it. Probably won't head this weekend, but I definitely be going to all the home matches anyway. So it takes a lot of organising to get young kids to go down to Dungarvan.
Yeah.
So that kind of probably would rule that out. But look, I've no problem going to any of the games. I've been the biggest supporter. Like, I've been chatting with a few lads even since it's over, just seeing how things are going on, and you know, lads are happy, like, you know, and they just want to get on with what they have. Like, they know who they have this year. They're, you know, kind of fresh enough that they want to say, hey, look, we had an extended break. We want to go and do something new this year and try and re-establish themselves, I suppose, in Division 3, I suppose, would be the goal.
Yeah, Brian, over the course of your 14 seasons, like, what would have been the greatest high you had, and you know, what would have been the greatest low? Because it obviously wasn't just all plain sailing all the while. It was like you were talking going Division 4 at some stages, Munster title at another stage.
Yeah, it's not a hard one now. Number one is definitely the highest high was the Munster final. Yeah, huge highlight of the career. Probably had a few smaller highlights. I suppose beating Cork for the first time in something odd years, I think 83 years or something like that, back in 2016, and getting to a Munster final. That was a huge highlight for me personally. The lowlights, there were plenty of them too, I suppose. Definitely, I think getting bet in 2019 by Limerick in the Munster Championship, and it wasn't even so much that we got bet, it was the manner in which we got bet. They destroyed us all over the field, and you know, we didn't see it coming. We thought, you know, we prepared well for the game and so on like that, and it was hugely demoralising. I suppose it had a huge effect on us for the rest of the year. We obviously lost it down in the qualifiers, so that was one. And you know, it was something that you look back and you say, God, that was really a potentially a defining moment in the career where it could have gone any one of two ways. Liam Kearns left afterwards, and thankfully David came in and kind of settled the ship, and we kind of reinvigorated a few lads, and we got over the line obviously in 2020. Obviously that, or 2020 again, the All-Ireland semi-final, personally again taken off at half time, wicked disappointing, and obviously to lose in the manner we did to Mayo, like, you know, they're the ones that hurt. Like, you know, if you lost barely, you'll be hurt, but at least you know you performed, you know, and that you gave everything of yourself. Whereas obviously personally I didn't feel I did everything because I didn't stay on the pitch for long enough, and because of the way we actually performed and it got bet by so much.
That same day, Tip had 9 or 10 goal chances. That could have been.
I keep saying that myself. We had so many goal chances. If you took 3 or 4 of them, it was a totally different game. And I wouldn't say that Mayo just, you know, I wouldn't have said they performed way better than us on the day, but just their clinicalness in front of goals, you know, and our wastefulness, you know, was a real disappointment, I suppose.
Yeah. And are there any near misses that come to mind? I mean, 2016, what a run that was. And then, you know, obviously a few players stepped away. I think after, was it Peter Atchison was away, and you even think, what if Colin Reardon was around? But are there any near misses? I mean, weren't too far off Mayo that year either.
Yeah, the game itself, probably we were a small bit off. I think the game, I regret from the point of view that we were so close to something huge, was losing to Cavan up in Cavan. It was a top of the table clash in 2018. It was our first year up from Division 3, and we were on going for back to promotion. If we won the match, we were essentially up in Division 1 the following year.
I think a draw would have been enough, because I think you had a match to play against Down, and you would have had something to play for that game, and you had nothing to play for after losing. So
the Down game had actually been cancelled because of the bad weather. So we knew that we had a game over Cavan. This was Cavan's last game and our second last game. And if we won or drew, we were safe. But basically, because if Down would have had nothing to play for, and we would have been going, you know. And we actually played very, very well. And Liam Casey got sent off in the second half for what I could only describe as nothing, like, you know, like a push. Got sent off for a push. And then a few just small things, like we missed some very kickable scores. I mean, like, I remember was it Jack Henry missed one that he was only 13 yards out. He just miskicked the ball, like, fell into goalie's hands. and there was one or two incidents like that, which would have put us 3-4 points up, and they came back, and your man got a great score to finish it, and like we were so deflated, and that was definitely the one. I think if you had been up in Division 1, it would have been a huge learning curve, but it would be something where you say, God, you're being exposed to the top teams all the time, and it probably would have driven fellas on to stay. More so, it materialised that some lads had stepped away because right, we're only in Division 2, it's not what we were set out to be like.
I know there was loads of, like you mentioned, the Cork game, and I still that was it 2017 when you raided that bit of robbery up in Armagh with the last one. Like that was class. Like I was myself, I was one of the few Tip people up there that day, and like nobody gave Tip a chance, and just that was unbelievable. Like I suppose, and that got us up to Division 2 for that year. Like it was just that was great stuff altogether. So it's I suppose just in terms, where do you see things being at the moment? I suppose you're now the outside looking in, and I just looking at the panel that was announced last week. Like what, like people will look at it, think it's Tip and Cavan because they're the two big names down there. But like I think I had in the paper this week that promotion is a target, but I don't think it's a guarantee because Tip need to find a few players, and like it's so bloody competitive down there in Division 4. You have Leitrim, Wexford, particularly, I think, are probably two teams that will fancy their chances of being promoted as well.
Yeah, well, look, I wouldn't say like I said, it's not a guarantee. Definitely not. I suppose with all the lads that stepped away, Mikey, Alan Campbell, I suppose, is someone that people forget often. He was involved in the championship. He's a huge loss. Emma Maloney, Paul Clorum, even Kevin O'Halloran, there's a lot of experience there gone, and a lot of those lads were starting or were first subs on, so fellas have to step up and fill that fight. Even I know Jack Kennedy since last year I don't think he's played in any of the McGrath Cup matches either, so he's still not fully right. And Stephen O'Brien has said he probably missed the first few league games as well. So it'd be interesting to see who fills those gaps in around the centre. Colin Kennedy is obviously playing Sigerson with CIT, and it's about who's going to partner him, and he's playing very well. But just fellas have to re-establish themselves. There's Dana from Wexford. I was tell you this now. I was actually on a stag last summer with the Wexford, one of the Wexford selectors, and then Brian Malone, who actually retired as well, just through a mutual friend. And they'd obviously played Dublin, and they'd give me a very good thing about Dublin. But talking to them, they have huge ambition for that squad, and they have a lot of good talent there, and they're probably the right fellas over it. When I played against both Shane Roach and Brian Malone, they would have been very, very astute footballers, very clever about what they wanted in the game. And when they were stepping away, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and the schedule has Tip going to Cavan and Wexford, so even though Tip have 4 home games, 2 of the 3 away games are very, very tough indeed, so.
Yeah, well, look, I can't understand it. We've never played Cavan at home, and I played them 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
it's crazy to me, in how it materializes every year that we end up going up to Cavan. So they're probably the two. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see how Leitrim go with Andy Moran and just what kick he gets out of them. They're a very competitive group. Maybe brought back Emlyn Mull again. He's a very good footballer, but don't know how much of an impact he'll have. I think he's playing on the half-hour line there in the Connacht FBD. So look, there's plenty of teams that we need to beat, obviously, and we want to win. Obviously, the first away game, which is Waterford down Farfield, and I'll be honest, it's probably the most hated field I've ever gone to play. Waterford and Fraher Field.
Yeah,
it's torture. They just really, really make it a dogfight, and it's a really windy pitch there out on the coast. It doesn't suit us at all, to be honest.
A year ago, David Power was talking about getting getting promotion from Division 3 to Division 2. Obviously, that didn't happen, and that playoff loss to Longford, he called it terrible. But he was talking this week, and I suppose the big thing for me was the backroom team, just in terms of staying on. We kind of stuck together, but it was hard, and probably the worst day was up in Longford. Being honest, we were just terrible. I was saying to myself, what the hell, what's happening? We go from the highs down in Cork of the Munster final to this. That's not being disrespectful to Longford. It was just that we were terrible. We really did pick it up before Kerry in the championship, because if we didn't, and I know we got well beaten by Kerry, but I thought we were very competitive against them for a good part of that game. Yeah, I mean, how tough was it last season, especially after that defeat to Longford?
Yeah, it was. No, it's a hard one to put your finger on. I mean, we came back and obviously last, let's say December 2020, January 2021, another lockdown happened for the first 3 months, and we had already been given our programs. Now, obviously, we finished December 6th after we lost to Mayo, So we only had maybe 3 weeks of an off season. And I suppose you would have said there was momentum there because we had such a good finish to the previous year. And there was, like, fellas were mad keen to be training and doing any extra bit of running or gym. And then when we came back, I wouldn't have said any different. I said fellas are bulked up, fellas have got stronger. The younger lads were putting more pressure on the older lads. And then when it came to the matches, just nothing clicked, unfortunately. Maybe it was the fact that we had maybe a target on our back and other teams were looking at us and we can beat Tipperary. We know what their weaknesses are or something like that. They've been analysing us. But yeah, we really found it hard. And that game up against Longford, Alan Campbell went off after 10 minutes. We had a number of lads carrying knocks into the game. And just like nothing went right. Fellas dropping balls, fellas making poor decisions. We kind of got ourselves back in the game a small bit in the second half. I remember I just came on maybe 5 minutes in the second half, and we got it back to maybe 2 points or maybe 1 point. And then we got turned over, a real soft turnover. They worked it all the way down the pitch and a sucker punch of a goal. And then you just know, like, you kind of feel an energy drift again that you're not going to get over the line here because too many things are going against us, like, you know, and that was just the story of the year, unfortunately, really.
Yeah, so like looking ahead to this year, and you know, we've talked about the players that have gone. You've mentioned them there already, and the likes of Michael Quinlivan and Maloney, Pádraig Luram, and you mentioned a couple more. But going into this year, like, what do Tipperary pin their hopes on? Obviously, you see Sean O'Connor very good with the under-20s. He scored 1-7 against Limerick in the McGrath Cup, and then some new faces. Former Donegal player Kieran Cannon, he's with Commercials now, so he'll be available. Éanna McBride, Mark O'Mara, Mikey O'Shea, Martin Keogh, Niall Heffernan, and Tommy Maher and Willie Everson of Lockmore. Like, do you look forward to the new season and think David Power has plenty to work with?
Yeah, I do. I think, I suppose, first thing I think is when you look at some of the panel, like, and who's there, obviously Evanson in goals, your half back line, you still have Robbie, Bill, Kev Fahey, like Robbie didn't play the league last year. Only trained essentially for 2 weeks before the Kerry game and was nearly our best player on the day. Like Robbie Kiley is a freak, like, really. People don't realise it, I suppose. He's no hamstrings, but he's some heart and he's some engine, like, you know. And so there, Robbie's been able to get a block of training into himself this time around. And so, you know, there's got a good solid space there, half back line. You've got Shane O'Connell and Jimmy Feehan and even Shocks there in the full back line for experience. The younger lads, like Sean, obviously has been playing really well for us last year, and he could have been nearly starting against Kerry, being honest. But obviously, when he's with the under-20s, and it was probably the best decision he made was not to play him against Kerry because he was available for under-20s and they got him once final, which probably wasn't seen for that crop of under-20s. But, you know, other lads really stepped up to the mark there as well. In the forwards, I suppose, you know, the role maybe in the half forward line, let's say, with myself and Emmett and Pádraig Luram, where, you know, there's obviously space there, and I'd be hoping fellas like Mark Keogh from Monaghan or Mark Stokes from Kilsheelan, you know, step in there. I think they're both very, very talented footballers, great engines, great attitude, very physical. You know, just probably didn't get enough opportunities due to injuries and probably just the fellas that were there ahead of them, like, you know. And look, I'm always of the belief that when one lad steps away, you know, it opens up another opportunity for another lad, and, you know, it's up to you to take that opportunity. And that's what happens. That's what happens year on year, like, you know. I remember, which was Liam Casey when he first came on the panel. He started ahead of me in a All-Ireland qualifier, like, you know. And I thought, Jesus, is this what I want to be? Is it going to be a sub? Like, and coming on, I think it was 2015, you know. So I had to try and work harder again. And when I got the opportunity, because I can't remember what happened, you know, I took it, like, and I made sure that I was nailing down that spot, that he wasn't going to take it back off me. So I'll be hoping that the lads step in like that.
Can you talk to us about Conor Bowe and, like, his impact last year and what the hurlers will be getting now that he's in Colin Bonnar's panel?
Yeah, Conor. Now, in fairness, Conor, I'm delighted that he got on the squad. Obviously, he's a fantastic hurler, and I was surprised that even last year that he hadn't been called in by Liam Sheedy. Being honest, just thought his performance with the under-20s, he's probably the main man he was with that under-20 squad in 2019. And when he came into us, he was actually sitting beside me in the dressing room, like, you know, and he's a cool customer, like, you know, but he's fierce eager to learn, and, like, he'd have no problem asking you about, you know, what did I think was the best thing to do in this scenario or whatever. And he's just very confident, like, you know, he no problem shooting left or right. He works really hard, you know, and like, I had never seen him play football. He never represented Tipperary underage, like, in football. So from that perspective, I was massively impressed, and I just think his attitude in general will help him propel himself into a position, you know, where he'll be fighting for a spot, I would hope.
Shane?
Yeah, no, I think definitely, and I just thought looking at playing football there, he was like he's a huge man, like he can cover the ground very quickly, like so. I think he's definitely filled out pretty well, like so. Look, I thought for his first year at senior football level, he settled in pretty well. You could see him getting better at every game, but you know he was coming from, what would you say? Didn't have as Brian said, he had no base of intercounty football behind him. So in terms of that scale, in that place, he did pretty well. So look, I don't know. It's like I say, I was just looking at possibly a Tipperary team. For what David Power might think, and there's a few things I'd love to see maybe this year. I think I'd be interested to see whether Elaine Hart, the new goalkeeping coach, has any impact maybe on kickouts. And I thought just like 2016-17, like our kickout strategies were terrific. Like won a high percentage of them, and maybe we found it difficult to get our restarts off in some of those games against Mayo and Kerry when teams get a run in us. I'd be interested to see something like that. And will David maybe go back to what he did and maybe as minor manager when he played Bill Maher as sort of he named him a 12, but he sort of gave him a free role to raid up and down the wing, and whether he'd do that, whether he'd be thinking of doing that again. Because I thought from the outside looking in last year, our attacks were maybe a little laboured last year, whereas maybe, you know, where somebody can carry the ball at pace, and maybe if Bill is playing further up the field, he could do that. And I think another one like that is Paddy Feehan. Like he's as eager as the day, as long as whether he could, after a couple of years being there, maybe nail a place down in the team.
Yeah, look, Bill, you can do any role with Bill. Like Bill could play in the full forward line and just work across the line for you as well.
Yeah.
There's so many options. Like people, like I said, people be saying, "Oh, sure, Mike is gone and this fella's gone, that fella's gone." The truth is, there's plenty of fellas there to perform, like, you know, and to do the different roles that you need. In terms of kickouts, I hope like Lane obviously has a positive effect on it. I mean, it was definitely a challenge last year. I suppose people will highlight the Kerry game and say we didn't win many of our restarts. I suppose what they don't realise is Kerry actually were playing a tactic where they more or less had 5 fellas inside your 45, marking your three fullbacks / cutting off space to your halfbacks. So your halfbacks had nowhere to run into, and they left themselves very exposed at the back. And sure, it's probably the reason why they conceded a goal against Tyrone. Tyrone essentially conceded their own kickouts. They kicked them long. If they lost them, they lost them, which is what Kerry wanted you to do. Kerry wanted you to kick long. They backed themselves to win it out there, and they would automatically have bodies up in the forwards when they did win it. So it wasn't a case of they got everyone back to get the breaks. They had so many bodies up there that if they won the ball long, they had bodies to give it to straight away, and teams had the chance to set up defensively. But Tyrone, sure, the goal they got, I can't remember who got it. Was it Derek Hanneman got the goal against Kerry?
Derek Hanneman got one of them, and Conor McKenna got the others.
Yeah, but it was kind of a breakaway off a kick out. They won the break off the kick out, and Kerry were so open at the back because they committed so many bodies forward, and Kerry didn't even commit as many bodies forward to Tyrone because they knew Tyrone were going long after the first half. Tyrone had essentially said, "We're not going short ever." You know, it's a gas one, like, you know. And whereas we would try and go short and hold possession, stuff like that, we couldn't. Like, it was impossible. And look, other counties are copying that. We did ourselves against Cork in the Munster final. We had 4 up in full forward line, you know, and squeezed their short kickouts, and we forced them long back in our midfielders to win them. I suppose with Colin, Stephen, and Conal there, and even Liam Casey, you had 4 giants really, and they would have had Rory Dean, and they would have had Ian Maguire, but neither of them are as big as our boys, or as prolific in the air, I suppose you could say, you know.
Is there any of the younger lads you think, maybe the new faces that I don't know whether you were the trainer in the last couple of years, is there any of them you think has potential to make? I suppose Sean O'Connor has been name checked by a lot of people, but I think he looks like he's ready. But is there any of the others you're looking for, you're hoping to see has the potential to make a big impact?
Yeah, now look, probably the fellas, the real new face on the panel this year, I wouldn't have met a lot of them, or wouldn't know a lot of them. Chatting to 1 or 2 of the boys, they were saying, like, you know, that there's 1 or 2 of them playing really, really well. Jack Kennedy from Brackens played very, very well. Aidan McBride as well. I personally think Mark Stokes fantastic footballer. I just think he's been on very unfortunate. He's been on the panel for the last 2-3 years. I suppose I've been duking it out with him for the half forward position to a degree, like, you know, and I would have definitely said there was times he was ahead of me, and I just hope he gets a clean run of it, because I think he could have a massive impact on Tipperary. His style of play, his willingness to get on the ball, his willingness to work hard. I think it's just key to maybe let other fellas then do their football, like, you know, like Bill, like Robbie, because they can trust that he'd be behind them if need to sweep back or to cover up, you know.
Yeah, and like it's good to see. Like, I suppose to see Lockmore having 3 in there. I know the majority of their best footballers are their best hurlers and with the hurlers, but like, I think you wouldn't say Willie Everson is young, but I'd say he's mature enough probably to make an impact straight away. And like Conor Ryan is just so accurate for the club. Like, I know I suppose maybe is he a bit light for intercounty, but you'd love to see him get an opportunity for a couple of games to see can he convert his club form into county.
Yeah, but look, Conor came in after the county championship in 2020 and probably got thrown in the deep end because he actually played the very first league match against Offaly, and, you know, he probably hadn't done enough with us to kind of know the roads of intercounty, you know, and how different it is from club. But like, Conor is probably the fittest man on the panel, just naturally fit. He's an athlete. Like, I think we were doing these Bronco tests, and I'm not lying. Like, I consider myself fairly fit, but he definitely bet me by a good 30 seconds, you know, which is crazy. Like, and everyone else be coming in over the last 20, 30 yards, just barely getting over the line, absolutely dead jogging, and he was sprinting over the line. Like, you know, he seemed to get faster as the thing went on, and like, he is so deadly accurate. Like, he doesn't miss, like, when he gets his opportunity. So, you know, now that he's been there for a year or two, I'd hope that, you know, he might be able to get a bit of a chance there again to establish him. And probably, I don't know, his corner forward his best role. I think between corner forward and half forward is his role, because, like I said, he's so athletic, but physically you probably need to be that bit bigger to be inside the full forward line to win that really hard, dirty ball that's coming in. Whereas if he plays between the two lines, he can have a free roll to drift out to the half forward line, and where there's a lot more space, and then come deep off those full forwards as well. Like,
Brian, just before we let you go, I know you're at work there, so you've been very good with your time. Just a final thing, what would you consider would be a good season for Tipperary, a successful season? I mean, there's player turnover and all that kind of stuff back in Division 4. Munster is going to be as tough as ever, albeit on the more favourable side. So what would you like to see this year?
Look, I don't think success is or for failure will depend on the league. I think if they get promoted from the league, that is a huge success. If they don't, I wouldn't see it as a failure, because, like I said, you have a lot of bodies missing. You're trying to re-establish the team, trying to blood a lot of young fellas, and maybe sometimes Division 4 is the time to blood those young fellas. You know, previous years it's so cutthroat in Division 2 and Division 3 that it's the same fellas starting because they've established themselves, and the other lads are not getting that opportunity. In terms of championship, then, look, you'd want to be beating Waterford in the quarterfinal and having a go at Clare or Limerick in the semi, you know. And the truth is, like, Clare and Limerick are both operating at a higher division than us at the moment, Division 2 and Division 3. But whenever any of those 4 teams play, you know, ourselves, Clare, Limerick, Waterford, there's very little in it. And, you know, if you get to a Munster final, then again, that's a huge success, regardless of who we're playing, Kerry or Cork, you know. So I wouldn't put it all on league. Obviously, if you do get promoted, that's an extra bonus as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, brilliant stuff. Really appreciate you joining us there, Brian.
Cheers, Brian.
Thanks for having me on, all right?
No matter.
Best of luck. So that's it from Brian Fox there. Great to chat to him. Shane, what are your own thoughts then? What would be a successful season?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with Brian. Like, I think promotion would be ideal. Like, I think it'll be difficult. I think Cavan will go up. I just think they probably don't have to find they probably just lost a bit of form. Like, I still think they have too many quality players. Like, they were just unlucky to be relegated. Like, so I think they'll go up, and I think it'll be between Tip, Wexford, and Leitrim probably to be promoted. So you're probably looking at Tip have got to get somewhere between 10 and 12 points. So you're looking at winning your 4 home games and winning 1, if not 2 away games. Like, so, like, that Wexford away game and the one, like, you have, look, if Tip don't beat Waterford this weekend, like, you've got to be getting off to win and start away to Waterford, not taking Waterford for granted or anything like that. And look, it's a Munster derby, and Waterford always difficult in Dungarvan, and particularly first up, like, here everybody's starting out fresh and eager. So look, if Tipperary get out of Dungarvan with a 1-point win on Sunday, you'd nearly take it. Like, so, like, I suppose David Howard said it, he's going to take it in blocks. Like, they have 3 blocks, and like if you have to get over this weekend, they have Leitrim coming down the following Sunday into Thurles, like, so that'll be one of your promotion rivals then straight up. Like, so if you get 4 points off your first 2 games in the first block of matches, I think you take it from there and you move on, and you hope maybe Jack Kennedy and Stephen O'Brien will be back then for the second block of games.
Yeah, so just to quickly run through the teams that are in Division 4 in the order that Tip will be playing them: Waterford, then Leitrim, Wexford, then Sligo, Cavan, Carlow, and London. So we'll see how Tipperary get on there.
And there's still, I suppose, for supporters, like there's 2 double headers with the hurlers there against I think the Sligo game is with the hurler, Tipper playing Dublin and the hurler, and the Carlow game is with the Antrim game and hurling. So like I suppose it's a nice double. Hopefully we get a good crowd in for both matches, and I suppose it's anything that more double headers the better. Like, so.
Yeah. So Colin Bonnar this week, he spoke about the situation with John Bubbles O'Dwyer, who wasn't named on the panel when we spoke last week, but he goes, who wouldn't like to have John on their panel? I've been talking to John since December. He's having trouble with his knee and got it scanned. He tried the knee out again in early January in a challenge, and it was a lot worse than he thought. We're back to square one where we need to work on it again. There's no one ever ruled out, and someone who has the skill level that Bubbles has and the experience that he has, it would be foolish to rule out any player of that caliber. He's 30 years of age now, and you know what? The championship is coming fast down the tracks. Will he have enough time to even get himself, like if we're talking about the knee being worse than it was in January, so we're talking in the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks max, is he going to have enough time to be ready for championship?
I personally, I'd be skeptical enough. Like if he was in training with the group and his knee broke down, or he wasn't able to do some of the sessions, and you still felt he was an integral part of the squad, would you not keep him there and do his recovery within the group? So I just wonder, are they by leaving John aside, well, not leaving aside, but moving on without him for the moment, are they sort of testing John's, I suppose, hunger to maybe get back in with the squad? Because like if John goes away and gets his knee sorted and comes back fit and hungry, Colin Bonnar has a top class player that's focused and ready for the fray. If he's away from the group and he doesn't do everything he can to get the knee right, what value is he to the are Colin and the selectors better off working with guys that they know they'll have? So I think it's a test of John O'Dwyer as to whether he really, if he really has to focus in terms of getting himself right and coming back and being a valued member of the squad. That's what I'm reading into it.
So you're saying this is a bit of a crossroads, and Bubbles will show ourselves his own ambition to get back and be the top forward he can be.
Yeah, that's my reading of it anyway.
Yeah, because like, I mean, I even imagine a situation like Bubbles absolutely hopping off the sod, played in that sort of Patrick Horgan type role. I mean, I don't think he's going to play as a wing forward, maybe a centre forward. You can definitely see why he would be quite good at that Richie Hogan type role as he used to do. But like as one half of a 2-man inside line, pop nice ball in front of him. Like he has the cleverness, the feet, the hurling to destroy teams. Assuming you get enough ball into him there, I think he can be a threat all sorts of ways. But yeah, that will be interesting because it's going to be, I think, pretty much mid-April that the first round of the championship down in Walsh Park against Waterford is going to be on. So he's up against the clock. That's less than 3 months. Like
there's a few ways of reading it. There's no doubt Bubbles at his best is definitely one of the best 6 forwards in Tipperary. So there's no doubting that. It's getting him to that best is what we all want to see. So look, I don't think it does any harm, because like you're not really making special allowances for him. Colin Bonnar, when he had on the radio with me last week, like he made no guarantee that John would be back. Like, so I suppose in some ways, is he saying to the other 34 guys, like, we're ready to, if John doesn't come back, he doesn't come back. There's no, if you had him within the squad and you're sort of, lads are half looking over their shoulder, how's John coming along, is he tipping along? And for the 34 guys in there at the moment, no, okay, he's not there. But look, if he does come back, we know he's going to come back, because the knee will be sorted, he'll be fully right. So I think it's sort of laying I think Colin is being fair to everyone. And I think that's the great honesty I've got from Colin Bonnar so far, is like you know as well as I do in this media game, or even as a supporter, the worst thing you can have is a vacuum of information. I suppose that when the squad was announced last week and John's name was there was that couple of days there where God, is he dropped? Is he injured? What's going on? And in fairness, Colin came on the radio Friday evening, answered a question that John O'Dwyer is injured and he'll be back if the injury clears up and he's up to standard. Like, so look, that's all you want really. Like, I suppose that bit of honesty and straight talk, I think we're going to probably see that in terms of what we're going to get from a Tipperary team this year. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we have a bit more hard-nosed approach in terms of what we see from Tipperary teams this year.
Do you get a sense from talking to him that we're going to see a much changed team in 2022 and a lot of the names from 2018, 2019, under 20 and under 21 groups are going to be given their chance throughout the league?
I think it'll go down the Liam Sheedy road. I think you get your chance if you deserve to get your chance through what you see on the training field. I just think I'm a believer in that, George. Just because you were an under 2021 winner, you have potential, but you shouldn't just be given a jersey and then you.
But a lot of these lads have shown that they have the quality. Yeah. They've been held back too long for me.
Quite possibly, yeah. It's like, I know it's probably something we're going to do on next week's show before the first round of the league. We'll try and pick who we think would be the best. Well, not the best 15, but at 15, I would like to see in terms of potential, in terms of and you sort of have to have one eye on Limerick too, because like they're the benchmark, and like they're setting the terms of how hurling is played at the moment, and you need a certain element of physicality and tactical awareness, and even sweeper is a dirty word, but like I think Tip have got to potentially look at sacrificing a forward next year to play either an extra midfielder or an extra defender, because I didn't think we were tactically savvy enough over the last couple of years. I think Limerick have set the template, and we've got to try and find a way of adjusting to it. Like, if it means maybe picking two wing forwards that'll do more donkey work than scoring, so be it. Like, so I'd be interested to see, particularly in the first two games, how we're setting up. Where will certain players be? Will Ronan Maher be a centre back, or will be on the wing?
Or a full back?
Yeah, that's it. Where will I suppose we won't see Pádraig Maher. Will Craig Morgan get a game? Where will Brian McGrath play? Will he be a deep lying midfielder, or will he be a wing back? So little things like that. Will we get to see more of Jason Ford at centre forward, where he killed Limerick last year, or will he be back inside maybe with a John McGrath, or will Seamus Callanan start, or will he be held back as an impact? So those sort of things. Like, I think there's definitely a few players. I think of the two of the under 21, three of the under 21s, assuming we think Jake Morris is established as he is, I think Craig Morgan, Brian McGrath, Paddy Cadell and Mark Keogh, I think they're four guys that have really got to say by the end of the league we're in the championship. They're the four I think have really got to be knocking down on the door after the league to say we're ready to go. I think the like of Conor Bowe could be sort of an X-factor player. He has the potential to come in and make an impact, but I wouldn't put that pressure on him straight away.
Yeah, and then I wonder, is like Dylan Quirk, who we saw named and went back there not so long ago, will he be in there? But like all those players you've named there add huge energy to the team, and most teams have a sitting centre back no matter what. But when you're introducing all this extra energy into a team and not so much relying on players who've a huge amount of mileage on the clock, and maybe they can be used a bit more selectively from the bench, like how much does that change how Tipperary would be if they use the exact same tactics as last year but introduce more energy? Be interested to see how that goes.
Like, there's like different ways of looking at it. Like, do you go and people say, should Ronan Maher be at 6 because you have him more in the play than rather than out in the ring? But then I would think, would you go with an unheard at 6 and maybe an Alan Flynn, a good solid guy that holds the position, and like a Declan Hannon, like at Limerick, you could tell me that maybe pound for pound, maybe Kyle Hayes or Jeremy Burns wouldn't be a better 6, but Hannon is there for a reason, because he's just the pivot that everything else comes off of. So
that's Paddy Cadell's position for me.
Paddy Cadell, that's it. A Flynn or a Cadell player who won't be flashy, but they'll just do the solid and give you a solid base at 6. That sort of thing is, if we see that through the first few games, I think we'll get an interesting view of what the management might be doing going forward, whether you have a Rona Maher at 6 or a Flynn Cadell at 6 or even a Barry Heffernan. That sort of thinking in terms of what they might be thinking going forward.
Yeah, like Tipperary may not close the gap on Limerick this year, but I do think the players are there to sort of make some inroads on it. A final topic before we finish up this week, Shane. The Munster Senior Camogie club title. I mean, Drum and Inch got all the way to the looking to retain the title, had themselves in a position against Scariff O'Gonolo to get it done. But a late goal from Mairead Scanlon, the 66th minute. Emer McGrath had a chance with a free. It didn't quite happen, to take the extra time. So pure misery for Drum and Inch in this one.
Oh, stop! And it was they lost to Scariff O'Gonolo by 1 point 3 years ago in the Munster Championship, and the same thing happens again. It just shows you how close it is. They only won the Munster title 6 or 7 weeks ago, and now they've lost it already. It's cruel for them. And look, it's an Emer McGrath. She's just so. She was so accurate all year, and I suppose she, as our manager Pat Ryan said, she won more games than them throughout the campaign, and it's disappointing. You can't just put it down to one free and it just shows so close. And look, I'm sure they would have loved to have pitted their wits potentially, maybe in an All Ireland semi final against Oulart or Tabala, but it's not to be. But look, I'm sure it's been a long campaign for them, and it'll be interesting to see in terms of I think the Tip Camogie team are due to start their league on Sunday week. I presume the Drum players will be given a bit of time off. You probably won't see them before the championship. And I suppose that will impact on Tipperary because they have a lot of Drum and Inch players in that squad. So maybe that will impact on maybe how Tipperary go in the National League. But I definitely think come championship, maybe in the summer, that Drum and Inch continues to be back. And then come the next year when they go for 4 in a row, they'll still be the team to beat in Tipperary.
And it was your fellow parishioner David Sullivan who managed Scariff O'Gonolo. So
yeah.
I hope you sent him a nasty text.
But no, it's be interesting to see how they get on. I assume, I know it's Oulart have to play the Leinster final against Thomastown, but you assume if Oulart are still at the same level as they were in the club final before Christmas against Arsfields, they should come through that. And whether Scariff are good enough to take them down, it will be interesting if they can do that.
So that's it for another enjoyable show of Tippcast. Don't forget to pick up the paper. It's available now, and we'll be chatting to you again next week, Shane.
Talk to you then.